And now it turns to me to introduce the second speaker for the opposition, Áine Furedi. Thank you.
First of all, let me say thank you very much for the introductions that have been given, which have been absolutely excellent, and mostly to the organisers of this debate for putting it on, because I think it's absolutely essential that on these very contested issues, we get the opportunity to arguments and to share our different views and to debate them. I really appreciate the opportunity to be part of that. I have to say that there is one thing that I do regret about the decriminalisation of the law in the abortion law in Northern Ireland, and that is that I regret the way that it came about. I do think that it would have been better, and I mean, Anne alluded to this, if the changes of the law in Northern Ireland had been subject to a full discussion and democratic vote by the people of that nation. I think it's important that the way that the law was changed in the Republic of Ireland very much reflected and was brought about by the people who were in that particular nation. And I think that it's always best when legal change is brought about by the people of a particular nation. But then again, having said that, I regret the way that the change was made. There is nothing that I regret about the circumstance of the law that now exists. I have to say that personally, I too believe that life begins at conception. I think that the embryo, however early in its gestation, is a mind being that as human, in terms of its species being, it is absolutely deserving of our value and our respect. And I do think that our law acknowledges that. And I think that it's important that we give humanity and human beings the status that we know that they deserve. They are indeed one of us in that respect. And I can understand Anne's consternation, and indeed the consternation of people who look at the circumstances of late abortion and make the point that a fetus late in pregnancy is the equivalent in many ways of a baby that has been born at the same gestation. And I think that Anne is exactly right when she says that if you look at a 36-week-old fetus in utero and you look at a 36-week-old baby that has been born, there is absolutely nothing that is different in the fetus or the baby. And even those of us who provide abortions will often refer to babies. There's no great difference except for the geography. One is inside the woman and one is not inside the woman anymore. And where the issue really rests for me is not about the care of the infant or the baby or the fetus. While I acknowledge that in some ways appears to be the sympathetic party in this discussion with whom we should emphasize, for me, a far greater importance and a far greater value becomes attached to the woman, because there the difference is absolutely everything. The difference between the baby being inside her, where any intervention is an intervention on her, any decision not affect unborn baby, let's call it, but also affect herself, is very, very different from the decisions that can be taken about a baby that's born. And the reason why I feel so strongly about the autonomy and the bodily integrity of that individual woman is because I believe that one thing that is as important as the sanctity of life is the principle that we are sovereigns of our own bodies. And
on that point,
no, I'm going to move on, cannot be commanded to use our bodies in a way that we don't agree with. There may be moral issues that you disagree with, but this principle that our bodies are our own is vitally important. It's one of the things that protects us against, for example, the harvesting of organs. If you take my kidneys, if you take my lungs, if you take my eyes and my heart, I could keep alive and benefit the lives of many other born and living people, but you can't do that because of the sanctity of your own body. I have a very special kind of blood. Not only am I O negative, but I have what's known as baby blood. I'm free from certain kind of antibodies, which basically means that my blood, I'm one of very few people whose blood can be used to save the lives of newborn neonates and of cancer patients, people who are immunosuppressed. I give blood, I give life to those people out of a moral commitment, but there is no law that says that I must do that. And I think it's right that there is no law that compels me to do that. So looking ahead then at the law and of the decriminalisation of abortion in Northern Ireland, the law that criminalised abortion in Northern Ireland was a 19th century law that was passed to protect the lives of women when abortion was very dangerous. In 1967, in England and Wales and in Scotland, a different law was introduced that allowed doctors to carry out abortions when women met certain criteria. And that law, the Abortion Act of 1967, was never introduced in Northern Ireland. And that was a decision that was made at that particular time. But when you look now at the modern circumstances in which abortion is provided, abortion is nor is a procedure that causes great mental distress to the women. Yes, of course you will have women who regret their decision, but BPAS, the organisation that I run, provides 80,000 abortions a year, and the number of those abortions that we think are regretted are very few. And the number of women who are entirely grateful and continue to believe that that abortion was the right thing for them and their family is very large. And the women who have those abortions with us are not feckless teenagers or people who don't know how contraception works or what it is. The majority of women are mothers already. Because you see, Anne, they have abortions not because they don't know what is growing inside their womb, but because they do know what it takes to raise a child. And they take the decision to end the pregnancy because morally they think, according to their conscience, it is the right thing to do. I believe that abortion is a deeply moral issue. And I think that moral decision has to be left to the conscience of the person who is closest to it. And that's the conscience of the doctor, who I believe should never be forced to do an abortion that they do not feel that they can in good conscience carry out. And to the woman who ultimately will live with the decision for the rest of her life. And that is why I believe that a decriminalised abortion situation is the right and, importantly, the responsibility for that moral decision where it rests, which is on the woman. Thank you for listening to me.